1, 2, 3. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu Be'amecha Yisrael.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that there's some kids here. Yeah. All right. So we just usually start singing, no talking. People will just... That's it, yeah.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Umevorach Shabbat Shalom. Umevorach Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach Shabbat Shalom, Umevorach.
Words mean a Shabbat filled with blessing. We're going to continue to welcome in Shabbat, welcome in these Shabbat messengers of peace with Shalom Aleichem on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. נהי מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's good to be here together to bring in Shabbat. Welcome back to our Bima, to
Thank
cantorial
you.
soloist Lisa Marcus Jones. When she's not here, she can be found in other Boston area synagogues, especially Congregation B'nai Shalom in Westboro, and invite you to join with her and join with all of us tonight in prayer and in song. You've probably noticed the days are getting even shorter. It is getting darker even earlier, and you may have also noticed the full moon of Kislev as outside tonight, shining brightly as we also make our way in about a little over a week, the holiday of Hanukkah, during the darkest time of the year when we get to add more light. There is a lot of light here in our sanctuary this evening. We are continuing tonight part 2 of a deep dive into our Shabbat prayers. So you'll notice that last Shabbat we focused much of our prayer time on the earlier part of the service, Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming Shabbat with the Psalms. We did sing all the verses of Lecha Dodi, David Wang. But tonight we are kind of shortening the beginning part of our service and focusing more on the second part, on Ma'ariv, the formal part of our evening prayers, and especially the Amidah. So as we get to those prayers, I'll be sharing some thoughts and teaching in place of a regular Devar Torah. For now, we're going to turn back to pages 2 and 3. It is an honor to invite Sandra Traister to bless our Shabbat candles this evening.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
And we'll continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi as we welcome in the Shabbat bride, and we're back to singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9 on that last verse. If you'd like to rise and face the doors, we'll bring in Shabbat.
This version of Lecha Dodi is from the Ukraine, and many people know it, but if you don't know it, if you haven't done it here, it is very easy to catch on to. It goes like this. Ay, Lecha Dodi, ay, likrat kala, ay, p'nei Shabbat, ay, nekabela, ay, Lecha Dodi, ay, likrat kala, Aidadai Pnei Shabbat Aidadai Nekabela Shamor V'Zachor B'Divochad Ishmianu El Hamyuchad Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad L'Shem Ultiferet V'Lidilah Aidadai Lekadodi Aidadai Likrat Kala Aidadai B'nei Shabbat Aidadai Nekabela Likrat Shabbat Lekuven Elcha Imekor Abracha Me'osh Mikedem Nisrucha Sov Ma'aseh B'machshavot Tchila Aidadai Lekadodi Aidadai Likrat Kala Aidadai B'nei Shabbat Aidadai Nekabela Hitoreri, Hitoreri Iva Orek Umiori Oi, 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 shedaberi Kevod Adonai Alayik nigla Aidadai lekadodi Aidadai likrat kala Aidadai B'nei Shabbat Aidadai nekabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam besimcha u'v'tzola Toch emuneam segula Boi chala, boi chala Aidadai lekadodi Aidadai likrat kala Aidadai B'nei Shabbat Aidadai nekabela Aidadai lekadodi Aidadai likrat kala Aidadai B'nei Shabbat Aidadai nekabela.
Turn now to page 26. You'll notice for Chatzi Kaddish on the top it says Arvit LeShabbat, again the evening service for Shabbat, and at Baruch Hu our call to prayer. This is the formal start of our Shabbat evening service. Everything to this point was warm up and transition. You'll also notice if you look at page 28, as we prepare for Baruch Hu, that this whole section is called Shema Uvirchotecha, Shema and its blessings. And the rabbis 2,000 years ago surrounded the prayer Shema with blessings on the evening. There are 2 blessings before, 2 blessings after. In the morning, only 2 blessings before, 1 blessing after, because the 4th is Hashkivenu, our prayer for the evening, just added at night. And I like to call this part of our service a blessing sandwich. Again, framing those words from Torah, Shema Ve'ahavta, with words of blessing, creation, revelation, and redemption. And you'll also hear we're going to be focusing on the theme of love, because the 2 blessings right before, or the 1 blessing right before Shema is Ahavat Olam, God's love for us, and Shema continues with Ve'ahavta, our love for God. So we're going to add some English words focusing on that theme. And we now move into our bridge to our call to prayer. And again, call to prayer reminding us to be awake in the moment. And Noah Aronson wrote some English words that highlight that theme.
Yitkadosh Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach irutei Ve'amlich malchutei B'chai echon uvyom echon ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח, ויתפאר, ויתרומם, ויתנשא, ויתהדר, ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי דקודשא ברכו, לעילמים כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ויאמרו אמן. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Ha'ed. Le'olam Ha'ed. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la.
I invite you to be seated, and we continue with our first blessing for creation on the top of page 31. You can read it with me in the English. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars.
Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Haravim.
We turn to page 32, Ahavat Olam, everlasting love.
Please join me as you feel able. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by by unending love and unending love. Let's do that again. Loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that lift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love. We are loved, loved, loved by unending love and unending love.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Ohev Amo Yisrael.
So we'll learn in a moment that the Amidah is the traditional standing prayer. The Reform movement added standing for Shema to highlight its importance. So you're welcome to rise if you would like, or stay seated. We'll join as we proclaim God's oneness and unity.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Avad.
Please be seated. We'll continue with these words from Torah, page 36.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi nitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha b'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
And we'll continue on page 40 with our Song of the Sea, Mi Chamocha.
Let's all join together. V'chamoch va'elim Adonai, v'chamoch nedar b'kodesh, v'chamoch va'elim Adonai, v'chamoch nedar b'kodesh. Norati lo osef ele, norati lo osef ele, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, ze Eli anu ve'amru, ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גיא ישראל.
Before we continue with that fourth blessing, the addition of the evening blessing, I'm just going to see who was really paying attention. So with our kids here, I like to play something called Tefillah Trivia. So the Shema and her blessings, something in it doesn't belong. Something is out of order. So I want to see if anyone noticed this. So I mentioned the three blessings: creation of the world; revelation, God's love for us through Torah. So God giving us Torah was the sign of God's love. And what we just sang, Mi Chamocha, the redemption or redeeming from or freeing from Egypt. So the three kind of tell the story of the Jewish people, but something is out of order. Paul Marsh, what do you think? Exactly. We left Egypt first, right? Crossed the Red Sea, sang Mi Chamocha, then kept journeying through the wilderness to Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah. So the rabbis did a great reversal in the blessings because Mi Chamocha was meant to be a promise of redemption, not just for the moment, but for the future. And when the rabbis made this switch, I think they knew that we would always need to continue that marching, continue that walk for freedom, that was something we would never truly leave behind. So it was an intentional switch for a hopefulness of continued redemption and freedom. Which takes us to that fourth blessing as we pray for a peaceful evening and new days ahead, page 42.
Ashkivenu shalom. V'hamidenu, shomrenu, shomrenu, l'chaim. Ufros aleinu, sukat shlomecha, v'tagnenu b'etza tova, milvanecha, v'hoshienu, leman shemecha.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. We sing our song of Shabbat V'Shamru, page 44.
V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
So there's a story in the Talmud about a man who was praying the Amidah, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Amidah and what it is. And in the Talmud, as he was praying, a king came and greeted him, and he did not stop his prayer. And a snake wrapped itself around his ankle, and he did not stop his prayer. And the Talmud goes on to say that when you are praying the Amidah, your focus should be so intent that even if a king were to come say hello or a snake wrap itself around your ankle, that you don't pause your prayer. Now, a later commentary did go on to say that if it was a poisonous snake that was endangering your life, then you could stop and run. But for the most part, the story was meant to illustrate what is called the kavanah, or intent, that we are meant to have during this rather lengthy prayer. And those who have been in our Talmud class here know that a repeated theme in Tractate Brachot, which is really where the Amidah prayer is put together, so it's not a biblical prayer like Shema Ve'ahavta, it is a later addition from the Talmud. The repeated theme is the term kiven libo, to incline your heart or to focus your heart. And there is lengthy discussion about how we focus our mind and our heart during this prayer. So now, you guys know I'm a fan of roadmaps because I don't have a good sense of direction. So, like last week, you have a little roadmap in front of you. And you'll see that the Amidah is really many blessings in one. And it changes whether it's weekday or Shabbat. So we're mainly going to focus on Shabbat because it's Shabbat, but I wanted to just reference weekday for a moment. So the Amidah itself, Amidah means standing. So as I said earlier, this was the traditional standing prayer. It is also known as tefillah, the word for prayer. So even though Hebrew doesn't have capital letters, think like prayer capital P or tefillah capital T. So Amidah and prayer are synonymous, right? The rabbis just called it the prayer. So tefillah, it is also called Shmona Esrei, which is the Hebrew number 18. So we're going to see why that is. So if you look on the side weekday first, you'll see just an outline of the Amidah, which really begins with 3 blessings and ends with 3 blessings. Same beginning and same end, whether it's Shabbat or weekday. But the difference is, during the week, there are 13 blessings of request in the middle. Now, here's my second trivia question for you. Who can do the math? How many blessings total? So I just said it's called Shmona Esrei, which means 18. So, well, let's do the math here. So it's 19. So what happened? So you can see, again, this is a very human prayer, right? People wrote this. These are personal requests in the middle. So originally there were 12. So that would get you to the 18. But one was added later on, and it was, even though there are now 19, the rabbis kept the name Shmona Esrei because 18 is a good Jewish number in the Hebrew letters Chai, meaning life. So they kept the name but added another blessing. The blessing that was added, I'm not going to get too much into this, is the one about punishment for heretics. So that we could do a whole class on that. But basically, over time, actually, if you think about the Talmud 2,000 years ago with the start of Christianity, it makes sense that as Jewish prayer was evolving, Christian prayer was also forming. And there were Jews leaving the fold, and so even though the other blessings are actually all positive, asking for something positive, this one was, we're going to punish the heretics, those who are leaving. And I'll just say the Reformed prayer book changed the wording, and it made it a little nicer and changes it to like removing evil from our midst. Anyway, so you can see these different personal requests. So the difference on Shabbat is that the rabbis said Shabbat is a taste of the world to come, a taste of perfection. So no need for us to ask for these different things, because we should imagine that we already have them, or at least feel complete. Also, don't want to ask God to work on Shabbat, so we're not going to ask anything. So if you just flip over, you'll see that the Shabbat Amidah has the same first 3 blessings, same last 3 blessings, but in the middle, it is all condensed just to one blessing praising Shabbat, so the holiness of the day. And again, when we pray this tonight, you'll kind of have this as your roadmap. So simply acknowledging the holiness of Shabbat. If you think about our holidays and festivals, that middle blessing changes as well. If it's, right, so like on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we have different wording in that middle blessing, or there's a Hanukkah insert. So you can always tell what day it is by that middle blessing, because that changes, and what surrounds it stays the same. I will just mention in terms of themes, because again, this makes sense if you think about it, and it is a little bit more in the weekday, but basically you have the themes of starting with praise, right? So, and actually the ABC kind of outlines this. So you start with praise, then you ask, and then you say thank you. So for our kids here, I'm not going to name anyone, but if you want something from your parents, it's probably going to go better for you if you say how much you love them first, then ask, then say thank you. Yes? Does it go better for you if you follow that? If you just start with asking, right, might not go so well. So the rabbis thought about this with God and actually framed the requests with starting with praise and then saying thank you. So a couple other just sort of background pieces that I'll share, and then again can certainly open up to any questions as we then enter into praying the Amidah. One other thing I'll mention, so the opening blessing, which is praising those who've come before us, specifically our ancestors, we call this avot, our ancestors. So you'll notice that in our prayer book, we have added the imahot. So again, in the Talmudic version, you would not find that. It was patriarchs only. Really, that was an addition in the Reform movement and other liberal denominations going back to the 70s. And this is a great example of people making change and the liturgy following it. Because again, those of you, we talked a little bit last week about the old blue gates of prayer. So the imahot were not in there. The matriarchs were not in there. Right? So people started adding the matriarchs, and the liturgy then followed and reflected that. So that's, again, given that we're an oral tradition, that is quite in line, because it wasn't until our current prayer book that we kind of formalized that change. And of course, with most things Jewish, parallels what's going on around us. So people started adding that in congregations in the 70s. So it makes sense in terms of the wave of feminism going through America. Maybe I'll just pause for a moment if anyone has any questions about this whole, again, it's called one prayer, but you can see it's really made up of many. If anyone has any questions about this whole unit that you've always wondered about. Or I can keep talking. Great. Yeah. So the other difference with Shabbat is in that middle blessing, it is different for evening and morning. So again, tonight we're clearly doing the evening, but you'll notice if you come Shabbat morning, it's much longer. So this Kiddushah, prayer for holiness. So in the morning, there's a whole elaborate repetition of Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So, and I'll tell you this, in conservative Orthodox prayer books, it's even longer. The Reform movement shortened it because there's this whole part about angels and kind of a whole mystical part. Again, I think I maybe shared this last week, but the main reason that morning prayers tend to be longer is because there's more time in the morning. So you've got the whole Shabbat day ahead of you. You're not going to work. So in general, the evening liturgy is shorter. That's why the Torah service is in the morning, because you've got more time. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, so it's much longer during the week, you can see. Yes. So I will just say, in different communities, the Amidah is sometimes said completely silent and then repeated out loud. In the Reform movement, we've kind of condensed that. So most of our custom is typically to start out loud and pause for some silent prayer. So again, this was meant to be personal prayer that eventually got written down. Tonight, we're going to be doing a little bit more out loud and then still pausing for some silent prayer. I will just mention a couple other fun facts about the Amidah. So the first is when we start, and it's the same for Baruch Hu, there's kind of a bow that you do. So it's kind of the Baruch Atah, and you're up for Adonai. So just kind of a small knee bow. Again, we studied this in our Talmud class. The Talmud explains that it is not that we bow to God. It is a recognition of our own humility. So that's how the Talmud explains it. So again, it is not that we're literally bowing to God. It is supposed to remind us of our own humility, kind of an acknowledgement that we are praying to something bigger than ourselves. And the other thing I just wanted to point out to you, so we're going to look at the very end and then go back to the beginning and start. So if you turn to page 62, So this is the end of the Amidah. And on the top of the page, you'll see the words, "My God, guard my speech from evil and my lips from deception." So that prayer in the Talmud was actually an individual prayer. So it was written by Mar, son of Rabina. So it was his personal prayer that eventually got put into here, but that's the part that is supposed to be our own words and our own prayer. So this is like a sample of what you can do, but you're supposed to add your own. And the Amidah itself is really a nice mix. I'm going to look at Dave Kaminsky here for the band metaphor. It is a nice mix of individual and communal prayer because it is meant to be said in a community, a minyan, but you're supposed to add your personal prayers in that moment. So it's kind of like the orchestra sounding better when you've got all the voices, but if you were missing one voice, right, it would sound different. So it's that blend of individual and communal. And I'm just going to share one thought by Rabbi Naomi Levy, who I think frames this balance really well. So she writes, "Traditional communal prayer is the structure. It's the house with a foundation and a roof and walls. That's what keeps you safe. That's what keeps you solid. And God willing, that structure will be there a long time, long after we've gone. But if you never paint it, never hang a picture, or never put in furniture and a rug, it's not home. It's a house, not a home. Personal prayer, what we add to the structure, makes it home." So I think Rabbi Levy sets that up really nicely. And this will all now bump back to the very, very beginning. So as I said, we're going backwards here. So if you now turn to the very beginning of the Amidah, which we're going to say these words together in a moment. So page 46. So later on, the rabbis added this introduction to this section, and it actually comes from Psalm 51, "Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise." So the rabbis basically said, this is a really hard prayer. So we just ended with our words, right? Our words matter. So this is a prayer, a prayer to pray. So may we find the words, even if it may be hard. And remember, this week's Torah portion, Vayishlach, is Jacob getting the name Israel, struggling with God. So the rabbis recognize that we might not always know what words to pray. And so we start with this kind of opening meditation, sort of a mindfulness of opening our minds, opening our mouth to find the words. So my last fun fact is where those opening words come from. So again, it's from the Psalms, and those words, well, maybe I'll ask, this is our last Fila trivia question. Anyone know who spoke those words? Biblical figure, biblical person. Who said those words? So good guess. King David is right. I figured if someone, so do you know what the story was of why he said those words and when? Okay, I'll tell you. So you all may know, actually I'm pretty sure Rabbi Zub taught a class about this maybe last year. So, King David, not really a perfect king, right? So he had sent Uriah on a little mission in the battlefield with the intent for him to die so that he could marry Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. Remember this story? So after this happens, the prophet Nathan appears in the court and tells King David a story of a poor man with a single baby lamb. And in the story, the poor man's rich neighbor stole the lamb to entertain a guest. When David heard this story, he was outraged. "Who is this man?" he said. "Let him be brought to justice." And in a great moment of prophetic phrasing, the prophet Nathan replies, "You are the man, Atah Ha'ish." And in that moment, David admits his guilt and begs forgiveness. And according to a midrash, it was right there that David said these words in the Psalms attributed to King David, "O God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise." And so this becomes the model that the rabbis had in mind for all of us, that we enter into the Amidah in a true spirit of openness, forgiveness, even a little trembling, and sincerity. So in that note, we're going to enter with a melody for this opening meditation. As I said, we're going to say all the blessings out loud tonight and incorporate some silent prayer as well. Yes? Mm-hmm. So it's just on the first blessing. So which is the avot imahot, the bowing, right? So when we say Baruch Atah, which occurs twice at the beginning and end, but it's just the opening blessing. We don't do it for the rest, because again, that's the start of it. So it's that kavanah, it's that intention. So I'll invite you, if you're able, to please rise.
Open up my mouth, open up my mouth, so that I may declare your glory. Open up my mouth, open up my mouth, so that I may declare your glory. Adonai, Sivatai Tivtach Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Adonai, Sivatai Tivtach Ufi Agid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora, Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot v'imahot, U'mevii Geulah livnei b'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech ozer u'moshia u'magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atara behoshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofech olim, u'matir asurim, u'mekayem emunato l'shenei afan, nichamocha bal gevurot, u'medam elach, melech memit u'mechayeh, u'matzliach Yeshua, v'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'chol yom yehallelu chaselah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. You may be seated. We're going to turn now to page 57, actually 56, and the first of the last three blessings is Ritzeh. We ask God to hear our prayer, to receive our prayers, and you'll have to tune in another time for the language changes and give a rote, because I didn't get to that, but we'll save that for another time. So we begin the concluding section by asking God to hear our prayer.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu, Be'amecha Yisrael, U'tefilatan Yahava Tikaveh, U'tehilatan Tamid Avodat Yisrael.
We'll turn now to page 58 for our blessing of gratitude. Give Lisa a moment to make her way to the piano. Again, so many talents. And remember, it's a Jewish value to say thank you. So let's read together in the English. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one whose mercies never end, O compassionate one whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. Modim anachnu lach.
This is a simple and beautiful melody by Cantor Jeff Klepper, and I have interpreted it in my own way on the piano, but that does not mean that you need to sit and listen. I hope that you'll sing it with me. The melody goes like this. מודים אנחנו לך, מודים אנחנו לך. Have you heard it? We thank you, God, for all your gifts. מודים אנחנו לך. מודים אנחנו לך, מודים אנחנו לך. We thank you, God, for all your gifts. מודים אנחנו לך.
We'll take a moment to add the prayers from our hearts and come back together for the prayer for peace.
Page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael ha'asim ve'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael ha'asim
ends with peace, because the rabbis in the Talmud said that the greatest prayer we can offer is a prayer for peace. We'll continue now with our prayer for healing on page 253. We are especially praying for these members of our community who are ill. Colin Monroe, Enrico Mascaro, Benjamin Horowitz, Bradley Dichter, Mateo Goldman, Toby Weiner, Esya Rushovskaya, Eileen Arnone, Jean Sands, Roseanne Cohen, Tom Fiorino, Carolyn Weil, Stephen Driscoll, Jerry Spingarn, Caroline Spingarn, Beth Gottlieb, Kirby Druffel, Gloria Weller, Carol Kotler, Myrna Offen, Arnold Offen, Joseph Sands, Ruth Brofsky, Liana Brodsky, and Richard Slifka. If there are other names you'd like to mention. Is anyone celebrating a birthday in December? We do have some folks. All right. Well, come on up. I know we're running a little late, but guess what? No sermon, we're done. So come on up. You get to have a birthday blessing. Our winter birthdays. Or I can come down. Okay. All right. Well, for our birthdays of Kislev this month, yeah, you can face out. Great. All right. For our birthdays of Kislev, you have a lot of candles in the month of your birthday. So I don't mean individual, I mean collective candles in this season of light. And I hope that however many candles you have on your own birthday cake, that your birthdays are filled with health and happiness, a lot of life. We thank God for our lives, which are in God's hands, and we thank God for another year of life as you celebrate your birthdays this month. We'll join in the blessing of Shehachianu, the blessing of thanking God for bringing us to another year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu והגיענו לזמן הזה. We bless you, Adonai, our God, sovereign in the universe, for giving us life, sustaining us, and bringing us to a joyful moment. Yom Huledet Sameach, happy birthday, and Mazel Tov. Thank you for celebrating with us. And speaking of celebrating, we can still celebrate tomorrow morning with our lay-led minyan at 9 a.m. In the library or on Zoom. And check your weekly shofar for other learning for kids, for adults coming up next Friday night, next Shabbat. And again, thank you so much to cantoral soloist Lisa Marcus Jones for especially bringing to life the Amidah and with lots of extra music. Next Shabbat, Cantor Louise Treitman will be leading music along with Temple member Rich Lustig and an entire ensemble of musicians that they are bringing. Vocalists, viola da gamba. If you don't know what that is, come check it out. It's going to be a very special Shabbat with an anniversary of Italian Renaissance music that Cantor Treitman will be bringing to our community. This is a special community-funded grant that she, you know her love of Temple Beth David. She said, if I'm going to do this, it's going to be at Beth David. And so next Friday night, 5:30, a special oneg to follow. And then we're at Hanukkah, so look for your information. Hanukkah happening for kids, Shabbat that overlaps Hanukkah the following week, and again, we'll continue to add light. Christmas Day, also an opportunity to volunteer at a homeless shelter, I believe, in Boston. So it's all in your email, so check that out. Thank you so much. She just left because she's probably setting up the oneg, but Barbara and Donna Seta for not only greeting us as we came in, but feeding us as well for the oneg. Thank you, Sandra, for ushering. We are going to move into our concluding prayers for this Shabbat. You can find Aleinu L'Shabeach on page 282. If you're able, we rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגאלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
We remain standing and take this moment to remember loved ones who are no longer with us. We are especially remembering these loved ones who have passed away in recent weeks in our community. Alice Bushinsky, the grandmother of Lou Bushinsky, along with Jenny and great-grandmother of Ethan, Ayla, and Rachel. Mark Katzen, brother of Marion Glasgow and brother-in-law of Arthur Glasgow. Helene Dratch, mother of Lori Minsky and mother-in-law of Gary. And Deborah Booker, sister of Lucinda Davis and sister-in-law of Fred Davis. We are remembering these loved ones whose yahrzeit, whose anniversary of death occur this week. Samuel Balin, Mary Bandankovich, Herman Beal, Francis Kaplan, Mildred Cheskis, Jean Cohen, Mildred Cutler, Jean Fastenberg, Connie Hoffman-Solomon, Louis Kaczynski, Sarah Kaczynski, Ruth Lederer, Lillian Rosen, Oscar Schiffman, Todd Schwartz, Ted Sharonau, Elaine Vogel, Marjorie Wellens, Meyer Wilson. If there are others you're remembering, you may share their names with us. And we join together for Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala uv'yizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Lisa, would you like to do us the honor of Kiddush?
Yes, absolutely.
We are on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat hodsho, v'ahava uvratzon hichilanu, zikaron lemase v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikrae kodesh, zecher l'tziat mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodecha, v'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. I know, see, in the preschool Friday morning, all the kids imagine they're holding, so there you go. All right, well, let's say Motzi, and again, we'll enjoy the oneg to follow, and we're going to conclude with one more song for peace. I do apologize. I am solo parenting this Shabbat and weekend, so if I don't see you at the oneg, I've got a couple kid pickups to do, but thank you again to the Asetas, and let's join for our blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, Shabbat shalom b'teavon. We're going to conclude on page 62 with Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom Yomav, Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu, Ye'al Kol Yisrael, Imru Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ye'al Kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ye'al Kol Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yasher Koch to you.